We are used to hearing Prince Harry talk about betrayal. We are used to hearing him describe a life shaped by secrets, private pain playing out in public headlines. But what happens when the betrayal isn't just emotional? What happens when the secret isn't a rumor from a tabloid columnist, but something that sits inside the legal system, inside court filings, inside private agreements that were never meant to be discussed out loud? Because this is the story that has resurfaced again, one that UK reporting has already touched in pieces over the last few years, but which takes on a completely different meaning when you put it together in a single timeline. And if you follow that timeline to its end, you reach the moment that royal commentators keep circling back to, the idea that Prince Harry may have discovered that major decisions were made around him, about him, without him fully knowing. The kind of discovery that doesn't just make you angry, it makes you feel small. It makes you feel handled. It makes you feel, as Harry has described himself before, like the spare. Not just in the family, but in the room where the decisions were made. Now, I'm going to be very careful with the language here, because a lot of YouTube titles scream "sources reveal" and "hidden truth" as if they have a leaked dossier in their hands. What I'm going to do instead is build this story around what has been reported by major outlets and what has been referenced in court proceedings, because in a story like this, the courtroom matters more than the comment section. So let's start where the real hidden theme begins, the war between Prince Harry and the British press. Harry's legal battles with the tabloids are not a side plot. They are the spine of his modern public life. They are the reason he says he cannot feel safe in the UK. They are the reason he believes his family was targeted. And they are the reason secrecy keeps appearing in the background of this entire saga. One of the biggest moments in this story came when Reuters reported that in court documents, Prince Harry said Prince William had settled a phone hacking claim against Rupert Murdoch's UK newspaper arm for a huge sum after a secret deal was struck. Just stop and think about the power of that word, secret. Not private, not confidential, secret. Because once you accept that a secret deal existed in that world, the next question becomes unavoidable. Who knew? When did they know? And what did Harry believe was happening while all this was unfolding? And this is where the emotional core of the title lands. What was hidden from him? Imagine being Prince Harry, spending years believing you're fighting an institution alone, believing you're dragging truth into daylight, believing you're the one brave enough to take on the press, only to realize that behind the scenes, the system had already made compromises, already done deals, already settled claims quietly and moved on. Even if those decisions were made for strategic reasons, even if they were made to avoid further damage, the psychological impact is obvious. It would feel like the rules are different depending on who you are. It would feel like the heir gets the clean exit while the spare gets the war. And that theme becomes even sharper when you bring in what the BBC reported in 2023, that court papers claimed King Charles tried to stop Harry from pursuing legal action against newspapers over alleged phone hacking. Again, look at the implication. If a father tries to stop a son from pursuing a case, it can be interpreted in two radically different ways. One interpretation is protection. This will destroy you. Don't do it. The other interpretation is control. This will expose things we would rather keep contained. And if you're Harry, already suspicious, already convinced the press and palace have a complicated relationship, you're more likely to read it as the second. You're more likely to feel that the machine is designed to keep certain truths from surfacing. Now add one more layer. Harry's argument has always been that he and Meghan were not protected, that the institution did not fight hard enough for them, and that the palace's relationship with the media created an environment where damage could happen with minimal consequences. So when Reuters reports Harry referring to a secret settlement involving William, and when the BBC reports court papers suggesting Charles tried to stop Harry's hacking action, the story stops being about tabloids. It becomes about family power. It becomes about who gets told what and when. It becomes about hierarchy. Because the monarchy is not just a family, it's a hierarchy disguised as a family. And in hierarchies, information is currency. It is shared selectively. It is controlled. It is released when it benefits the system. That's why hidden is such a loaded word in royal stories. It suggests not just privacy, but strategy. And strategy is exactly what Harry believes has been used against him. Let's talk about the emotional image the title promises. Harry left shattered. Again, we can't confirm his emotional state in real time, but we can say this. Harry has repeatedly framed his conflict with the press and the palace as trauma, as betrayal, as deep psychological damage, and the press hacking cases are central to that narrative. The BBC has covered how Harry's claims were challenged in court and how detailed the case became. Source. And Reuters has repeatedly reported on the larger ecosystem of Harry's legal battles with the British press. Source. So the shattered framing, while dramatic, is rooted in a real pattern. Harry has attached enormous emotional meaning to these cases because for him, they are not technical legal disputes. They are proof that his life was manipulated. Now, here is where the what was hidden story becomes most explosive, because it's not just the press, it's the relationship between the palace and the press. Royal watchers have long believed there is an unspoken arrangement. The palace maintains access, the press maintains the narrative, and everyone benefits until someone refuses to play the game. Harry's argument, over and over again, is that he refused to play, that he tried to break the system, and the system punished him for it. If you accept Harry's worldview for a moment, then a secret settlement is not just a legal event, it becomes evidence of the machine operating exactly as he fears. Problems are quietly paid off, damage is contained, and the public is kept at a distance. Which brings us to the most personal question. Did Harry know about William's settlement when it happened, or did he learn later? Reuters reporting highlights Harry's position that there was a secret deal and that William settled. Source. The very existence of that claim suggests Harry believed something about the process was not transparent to him. And that is where shattered makes sense as a narrative beat. Because if you are fighting a war you believe is moral, truth versus intrusion, and you discover that others made peace deals quietly, it can feel like betrayal, even if it wasn't intended as betrayal. It can feel like you were the only one willing to take the hits publicly. It can feel like you were left holding the grenade while everyone else walked away. Now let's zoom out to what this does to Harry's position inside the royal family story. For years, Harry has framed himself as the one trying to protect his wife, the one trying to protect his children, the one trying to protect his mother's legacy by fighting the same press machine he believes killed Diana. And then he is confronted with a different truth, that his own family, at different points, may have prioritized containment over confrontation. That doesn't automatically mean they were wrong. It doesn't automatically mean they were cruel. It means they were institutional. The monarchy does not run on emotional closure. It runs on risk management. And when you put an emotional person into a risk management machine, you get exactly what we are watching. A man who feels he was never told the full truth because the full truth would have been inconvenient for the system. Now, here's the moment where the title becomes real content. What exactly could have been hidden from him? In the press hacking world, hidden can mean multiple things. It can mean the scale of intrusion, how much was accessed, how many voicemails, how many staff devices, how far it went. It can mean the scale of settlement deals, how many claims were resolved quietly, who took the money, who signed what, who agreed to what confidentiality terms. It can mean the strategy decisions inside the palace, who advised whom to settle, who advised whom to avoid court, who believed a trial was too dangerous. And crucially, it can mean a personal truth for Harry, that he believed he was alone in his fight, only to discover that there were parallel fights happening quietly in the background. This is why this story hits, because it reframes Harry's war not as an epic battle, but as the last chapter of a book others had already finished. Now, if you want a cinematic scene, here it is. Harry, somewhere between California life and British courtrooms, reading filings, reading summaries, hearing about arrangements that were never discussed with him in a way he felt was honest, hearing that a settlement was struck secretly. Source. And then remembering that his father, according to court papers reported by the BBC, tried to stop him from pursuing legal action. Source. In that moment, everything becomes personal, because it isn't just the press did this. It becomes my family knew how the game works, and they didn't tell me the rules. And when you believe you weren't told the rules, you start questioning every other moment in your life. You start asking, what else was decided without me? What else was managed for me? What else did I believe was organic when it was actually curated? This is why for Harry, the press story is inseparable from the family story, because he doesn't see them as separate systems. He sees them as connected. Now, let's be fair. There is also another side to this, and UK news style requires we acknowledge it. There is a rational reason a senior royal might settle quietly. Public litigation can extend scandal, expose private communications, and destabilize the institution. A settlement can be a strategic retreat. There is also a rational reason a future king might be advised to close a case discreetly. The monarchy doesn't benefit from a public trial that drags the press, the palace, and private relationships into open court. And there is a rational reason a king might advise his son not to go to war with newspapers, because newspapers fight back, because the public spectacle can become ugly, because it can become endless, because it can swallow your life. So yes, Harry could interpret those moves as betrayal, but they could also be interpreted as survival strategy. The problem is, strategy without transparency creates resentment, especially in families, especially in hierarchies. And Harry is not just any son. He's a son who already believes he was treated as the spare, second priority, second importance. So when he hears about secret deals and private maneuvers, it lands in the worst possible place in his psyche. They were protecting the system, not me. Now, here is where the title's promise becomes complete. UK sources reveal what was hidden from him. In reality, it's not a single reveal. It's a pattern of reporting and court references that keep pointing back to secrecy. Reuters highlighting Harry's statement about a secret settlement. The BBC highlighting court papers claiming Charles tried to stop Harry's legal action. And the ongoing reporting about Harry's broader battles with the press in UK courts. Battles that keep him tethered to the country he left, because the war he's fighting is still based in British institutions. So if you're asking, what was hidden from him? The most defensible answer, based on reported material, is that Harry believes he was not fully included in how the institution managed press warfare, and that major decisions were taken behind closed doors, including at least one settlement described as secret. And that belief is enough to shatter someone emotionally, because it destroys the idea that you were fighting for a shared family mission. It replaces it with a colder reality. You were fighting for yourself, while others were fighting for the institution. Now, where does this leave Harry today? It leaves him in a strange position. He's a man who has built a public identity around truth-telling, around exposing systems, around refusing to keep peace through silence. But he is also a man who is still emotionally attached to the very institution he says harmed him. He's still Prince Harry. He still carries the memory of his mother. He still carries the hope, at least in some versions of his story, that reconciliation is possible. And the tragedy is this: reconciliation becomes harder when you believe secrets were kept, because even if the family wants peace, peace requires trust, and hidden from him is the opposite of trust. If you want to understand why Harry keeps returning to the UK for court battles, why he keeps framing the press as a personal enemy, why he keeps pulling the palace into these conversations even when the palace refuses to respond, this is why.
Because in his mind, the press story isn't just about privacy, it's about power. And the moment you believe power was used around you without your consent, you stop feeling like a prince and start feeling like a pawn. Now, a final thought, because this is where the story becomes even more psychologically intense. In most families, if you find out something was hidden from you, you can confront it in the kitchen. You can argue, you can cry, you can leave, you can come back. Families can be messy and still heal. But the royal family is not a normal family. It is a family inside an institution, with lawyers, advisors, courtiers, and long-term strategy. So even if someone wanted to sit Harry down and explain every decision, they might not be able to, because the decisions don't belong to one person, they belong to the machine. And that's what makes Harry's situation uniquely heartbreaking. He isn't just trying to heal a family relationship, he's trying to heal his relationship with an institution that runs on secrets. And if the reporting and court references are right, if there really were secret deals, and if there really were internal attempts to discourage his legal war, then Harry isn't just battling newspapers, he's battling the logic of the monarchy itself. So when you see a title like Prince Harry Left Shattered, don't just imagine a dramatic phone call. Imagine the slow realization that the people you thought were fighting alongside you were managing a different battlefield entirely. Imagine the weight of learning that the war you made your identity may have been quietly settled by others long before you understood the full picture. And imagine what it does to a man who has spent his whole life fearing one thing above all: being controlled, being used, being silenced. That's why this story keeps coming back, because it's not just about phone hacking, it's about trust. Now, tell me in the comments, if you were Harry, would you see those secret moves as betrayal or as protection? And do you think reconciliation is even possible when the monarchy's first instinct is always to keep the real details behind closed doors?